Hey there, this is Matt at State of Flux here with a review for The Incredible Hulk, and this is anything but incredible. Unless you are somehow one of those people who recently decided that this was retroactively a phenomenal film, pretty much everybody wrote this off as being a piece of crap, and I don't think that they're entirely far off. I don't think it's as bad as its reputation was at one point, but it's also far from anything that I would deem good in the traditional sense. That's right, I am taking a look back at all these MCU movies, and this is on the road to Avengers Doomsday, and the Incredible Hulk is the weird misfit child of them in that up until this year it was kind of just softly tangentially related because of the Thaddeus Ross character coming back in like Civil War onwards. It really doesn't really feel like part of the core group because of Edward Norton not reprising his role or not being invited back to the role moving forward. Now, Edward Norton is a good, if not great, actor. However, he's also one that creates sort of turmoil on the set in that he likes to have extreme control. And when you're really, really good at reworking story, that works, and he, by all accounts, sounds like he fixed American History X and had pretty firm involvement in several movies where he helped lead to great creative change, but I don't feel like his involvement here was one of them, unless this is the better version of the story, which is wild. But I'll touch more on the Norton of it all probably when we do a review for the Avengers, because he was very specifically not asked to come back. But I also don't have a problem with it because he's not good in this role. I think he was so focused on fixing this movie that he forgot to really put much of an emphasis in this character, and his character sounds more bored most of the time rather than even-keeled, which he's so desperately trying to keep his emotions even. It doesn't read that way. It reads as if he's passively in one of these movies because, you know, potentially there's payout so he can do something that he would prefer to do later. And yeah, it's just not really a good look, and he has no chemistry whatsoever with Liv Tyler, who I really quite like, and I love that they got somebody so calming and soothing in their voice to play his opposite. That's really kind of neat. If he had amped up that rage that you get on the Hulk side of things, you could have really seen some sparks fly there if he had just even allowed himself to suggest emotion behind his eyes. But he just doesn't have that. The Hulk action scenes are cool. Louis Leterrier is fairly decent at shooting action, but he's not a really good storyteller when it comes to providing, you know, a movie that hangs around the action. So yeah, this is just one of those ones that's kind of weird, and it's both tangentially related to the MCU up until Brand New Day or whatever. No, what is it called? Brand New World? Brave New World? The new Captain America 4 made it a relatively must-see film to understand that one. It's also tangentially related to the original Ang Lee Hulk, which it also feels so disjointed from that. It doesn't feel like it belongs into either of these worlds and makes it this weird bastard son of both of them. This is the first kind of requel film I can think of because it does have the reboot qualities that you get with a lot of reboots or requels. But it also kind of acts as a sequel to Ang Lee's film. That movie ended in Brazil. This movie picks up there. It has a fully new cast, and you get a version of his origin story told in the beginning of this that kind of contradicts, but not really contradicts what you saw in that one. They just kind of updated it so that you got to know in the opening credits what was going on, had you not seen that one. But that one was so busy with everything happening on screen, even though it was telling this very kind of like operatic, personal, quiet story of just a handful of people. Yeah, things were happening on screen with star wipes and stuff every freaking second. This one tones that down. It's streamlined action movie that feels like it belongs in like a Fast and Furious movie, which I believe the director went on to make one of those too, right? Anyway, yeah, it's this weird movie that I don't think belongs anywhere. Yet now is required viewing for you to accept Captain America 4 to have any qualities, and retroactively is better to now because of that movie, even though that movie isn't like necessarily high art particularly either. I do think it's better than this movie. This one had a lot of open-ended issues that never really got addressed again that have now come back into play and made it a little more palatable. And I do like how it also ties into the super soldier serum, making it a little neat if you are watching these chronologically. It's like, oh, this is Captain America, and they made this years before that was even a movie. How cool. And obviously this has a cameo from Robert Downey Jr., the only MCU movie in the original series of phases to not have a post-credit sequence. They pushed it up to right before the post-credits, because they probably didn't assume anybody was going to wait for it. But yeah, I don't like it. Abomination is the villain, and that kind of is the level of quality you're getting here. It's not, I'm being mean, it's not an Abomination, but shy of the action, which I think is what a lot of those like dude bros who are like, The Incredible Hulk is an unsung good movie, are just thinking about the action scenes. Wallowing in between the scenes that don't have action is a slog, and I stand by that. Abomination is a kind of neat character visually, and I like how he looks better in this than he does in later stuff. The people who say that this Hulk looks better, he doesn't look like Eric Bana. Oops, no, he doesn't. He doesn't look like Edward Norton. In fact, he looks more like Eric Bana than he looks like Edward Norton. I like how they get Hulk to actually look like Mark Ruffalo in all future installments. Like, to me, that's somewhat important. It creates this believability that this film just kind of generally lacks. I'm not a fan of it. I think it has a really good score. I think that you have some good actors in this film, but not held together with a particularly strong filmmaker, and from a screenplay by Zach Penn, who just can't really write. I know that man has kind of complained ad nauseum about how he was so mistreated from the Avengers and how Joss Whedon just stripped the movie away from him, and it's like, yeah, but if I'm going off this movie and also future movies that Zach Penn has written, there's probably a reason for it, and it's probably because his Avengers script wasn't very good. And I'm just going to put that on Front Street. It's nice that Whedon even credited him. I think on the commentary, Joss Whedon says there is not a single line of dialogue from the Zach Penn script that made it into the Avengers movie as is, and the story was completely different. So he just got a script because he'd spent years on one, and there are a couple of ideas that made it all the way through. But he still gets credited on that, and if you look at his IMDb page, you're like, oh shit, he wrote that? That's probably his best movie. But he didn't, and this movie kind of shows the quality of writing that he's capable of. And keeping in mind, that may have been fixed by Edward Norton. So, there you have it. What did you think of The Incredible Hulk? I know it's kind of unpopular suddenly with the Dude Bros and the Letterboxd folk to attack The Incredible Hulk, because retroactively people have claimed this as being a good movie. But it's not. So let me know what you thought of it in the comment area down below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.